Lessons Lived podcast. Hosted by Michael Puente. What would you teach the world?
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Lessons Lived podcast. My name is Michael Puente and I'm the host of the podcast and I'm the founder of Lessons Lived. This podcast is quite simple. I'm going to simply talk with people and ask them to answer one simple question. And that question is, what would you teach the world? Talk with a bunch of different folks on the podcast and look forward to talking with a bunch more. And I'm learning so many things about so many people. I'm learning the truths about their lives and what they've come away with so far from their time on this earth. The first podcast episode is going to be a little bit different from the rest of the episodes because, well, first, I don't have a guest. It's just me. And for this episode, I want to give you a little bit of background about Lessons Lived. I'd like to first talk briefly about how I came up with the idea for the project. Then I'm going to discuss one of the lessons from my own life that really forms the core of the Lessons Lived philosophy. This is the basic idea that everybody has something to teach the world. Further, I want to explain what it means to recognize this fact that everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean absolutely everybody has something to teach the world. Finally, I'm going to talk about the website itself, what it is, and how you can participate in the project. First, let me give a quick history of how I came up with the idea. In August of 2018, I went to Peru to do a retreat. Now, this was the second year I was going to the same retreat. It's in the Sacred Valley. And for me, the Sacred Valley of Peru is really one of the most beautiful and connected places I've ever been to. I feel completely connected to the earth there. And the people running the retreat are absolutely amazing, wonderful facilitators, incredibly kind, big open hearts. My experience there was life-changing, and just thinking about the place really fills me up. So as part of the retreat, I was doing a meditation about my life. And the question I asked during that meditation was, what's my life's purpose? As I contemplated the question, I realized that my life's purpose is to really learn about other people and find out what they have to teach the world. But it was more than just talking to people. I realized I had to find a way to disseminate what I learned about people in the world. And over the course of the meditation, I came up with the idea of creating a website, which would be a place where people can go to share the important lessons of their life. And this is now the website, lessonslived.com. The idea was to kind of make like a social media-like project, but deeper. It isn't something that you go to throw up pictures of your kids at Disneyland or whatnot. Rather, it's basically something that you go into with real intention. A place where you document a lesson that you've come to as a result of your experience of having lived your unique life. A place to think about your life and leave something of your life for others to gain from. It's supposed to also be a place where people can come and bear witness to others' life lessons, and by doing so, to better their own lives along a variety of dimensions. And the longer-term hope for the project is that it develops into a real community where we can learn about each other's lives in a real vulnerable and honest way. And I truly don't think there's anything like this available today. So anyway, that's basically how I came up with the idea while on retreat in the beautiful Sacred Valley of Peru. After coming back to the States and thinking about it a little more and working with some folks, I came up with the name for the project. And then my friend Yoni, who was also on retreat with me there in Peru, he really did help me so much with the technical aspects of the website. It's not my forte. But anyway, that's how the website came into existence. And in broader terms, I really hope that Lessons Lived is able to make an impact on people's lives. Longer term, I imagine the project serving as a repository for the life lessons of hundreds of thousands or millions of people's lives. It could really be quite a beautiful thing. I hope you will join me on this project. It starts simply with answering the following question. What would you teach the world? And it's really that simple. What would you teach the world? It's this defining question of the website, and it's the focus of the podcast. So this leads me to the first contribution in the form of a lesson. What I would teach the world is the benefit of realizing that everyone, including yourself, really does have something to teach the world. This philosophy has three elements to it. The first element has to do with the self-awareness that comes as a result of working on figuring out what you have to offer here. So it's basically an exercise in self-reflection. What would you teach the world is a heuristic for self-reflection that leads to increased self-awareness. There's so many things swirling around in our minds, having to think about the many components of your life, and then putting them in order and wondering what's important and maybe what's less important, and then distilling it down to just a few items might be especially meaningful and generalizable enough so as to be useful to somebody else is tough. It's really tough and quite challenging. However, it's also an incredibly valuable exercise to increase your self-awareness. It's valuable because through the exercise, you learn about yourself in a deeper way. The second part of the philosophy of recognizing that everyone has something to teach the world is that it results in us being kinder to one another. So now when you look at your neighbor, and by neighbor, I mean any person that's in your environment. It can be a coffee shop barista pouring your coffee, your parents, your coworkers, person crossing the street next to you, the person who cut you off in traffic, a random person whose picture you see in a magazine, doesn't matter. You now look at them from a different angle and wonder what they have to teach you. You can wonder about what they have learned in this world. All of a sudden, it becomes super difficult, and I mean super difficult, to devalue other people. We realize that every person we encounter can teach us something. It opens up our compassion and our curiosity for the other. We can use this philosophy and this awareness to live a better life in community with others. So instead of reacting to challenging situations with another person with anger or annoyance or irritation, we can contemplate, what would you teach me if given the opportunity? This reframing is a powerful way to soften our hearts. And it's just a really amazing exercise that adds value and connection towards people you might not have given a second thought to. By wondering about their life and what they can teach us, we instantly form a relationship. We instantly become more connected. So maybe think about it next time you feel a reaction towards somebody, whether they cut you off in traffic or they say something that triggers you. Think, if we sat down and had a cup of coffee or tea and had the opportunity to talk about their life and what they had learned about living, it's going to be some real value. And there's going to be a decrease. And you're going to feel a decrease in those reactive emotions. And to the extent that more and more people begin to do this, it could really make a difference in the world, because we'll be treating each other with more curiosity and more love, really. What is also really good is to bring up this question when you're in a trusting conversation. Ask, what would you teach the world? You're going to get an amazing answer. There is great connection in having someone share real wisdom from their life with you. So how do I know this? Well, at first, honestly, it was just a hunch that I received in a meditation in Peru. But I've been practicing this for nearly a year, and I found it to be very true. For example, this may be the first episode, but I've already recorded a bunch of episodes and spoken with many, many people. So I've witnessed the fact that people really have something of value to share and to offer. For the most part, the folks I've interviewed so far have been people that I've known for several years at least. And it's amazing what I've learned about them with this question as the focus. The question, what would you teach the world, brings up a space that doesn't come up in regular conversation. Just doesn't usually get there in the regular day-to-day interaction. So that's the second part of living as if everyone has something to teach the world. And the third benefit of this philosophy is as it applies to yourself. And this is one that I think a lot of people struggle with. I have some friends who are of the belief that they don't have anything to offer in this regard. There's nothing about their life that they believe anyone could benefit from. And I know my friends who think this, well, they're wrong. And this is something that's part of my mission. That is to turn that around and have everyone realize that they have this incredible value and that they can add to the world, and that their life is meaningful and that their life is worth learning from. There's one person in particular who told me that they love the project, but they don't have anything to teach the world. The truth is, though, I've already learned something from this person just from interacting with them. They've taught me a lot. So I know that they have something to offer. They're just blind to it. And I hope someday soon the switch goes off for them. Because when you realize that you do have something to offer in this way, it then becomes a very powerful realization. And it can be super empowering. You need to realize that lessons that you deliver to the world are really the manifestation of your consciousness and the manifestation of your experience in this life. What have you learned so far? Let's share with one another. Write it down and share it with the world, because you have value. You have stuff to teach the world. And by doing so, you help your brother and you help your sister. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about a way to help those folks who think they don't have something to teach. Towards that end, I have a few cues or questions to think about that I think are a really good place to start. So the first cue I have for you that may be helpful in coming up with lessons that you can contribute is as follows. Imagine that God appears and asks you, what are the most important things that you've learned so far? So you've lived all these years on the planet. What have you learned? God's going to want an answer. You've lived 20, 30, 40 or more years. What can you share with others? What are you going to report back to God? So that's one question anyway that might spur some thinking for the self-examination that's required to answer the question. The second cue I'd like to share is as follows. Imagine that you will definitely be reincarnated into another human body in your next life, and that you're also made aware that you can communicate one teaching about this life with your next life. And that teaching might help your next life be more successful. It might help your next life get closer to spirituality, to be more satisfied, however you want to define the benefit to your future life. What is that lesson that you would communicate to your next life? What would you tell the reincarnated you that's a lesson that would help them? Another cue is to think about kids. And we're always talking to our kids, telling them what to do, telling them what we don't want them to do, all that kind of stuff. So the idea here is to distill out one thing that you would want your kid to know and understand about how to live a better life. It should be a thing that you arrived at that would tell them also something about you and your life. What would that be? What would you tell your child? And realize this, that if it's good for your child, it'd probably be good for anyone else to know. And then we get to the final cue. And those are for those people who still don't believe that they have something to offer the world. And I know that you have something to offer the world. So I ask that you think about one question. Because if you can't think of anything, this question actually solves every riddle in terms of thinking about something. So I need you to fill in the blanks to the following sentence. I wish I knew X before I did Y, because then Z might have worked out differently. Mistakes and failures are really good learning experience. In fact, all of our mistakes, all of our failures, all of our arrows are opportunities to do better next time. And when we learn something from our mistakes, we can benefit by not repeating that mistake. And by sharing what we've learned, we can make it of value to others so they also won't make the same mistakes. Anyway, those are 4 approaches that I hope are helpful for anyone who's listening to this to get on the website and write something down and put it down there. Throw up something about your life that can be of service to another person. That's really the mission of Lessons Lived. In fact, the mission statement is to collect the life lessons of every human being and disseminate those lessons for humanity's benefit. So the website is www.lessonslived.com. If you go there, you can log in and contribute something that you would teach the world. It can be what you would tell God that you've learned in this precious life. It could be what you would tell your reincarnated self, or what you would tell your child. Or maybe it could be some advice that may help someone not make a mistake that you made. Just imagine a place where millions of lessons that are the result of millions of lives are available for the people of the world to learn from. You're having a problem with a relationship, or you want to get close to other people. You want to understand about changing careers. Or maybe you just want to see ways other folks have found to push the edges of their life because you want to learn from them and continue on your own mission to be a better human being. With your help and with your contribution in the form of a lesson or 2 or 3 or 4, answers can be found to these and so many other situations. Together, we can really help the world in this way. I want to encourage you to explore the website and, more importantly, put up what it is that you would teach the world. So anyway, that's what I have to offer, both through the website and through the podcast. Thank you. I appreciate you listening to this. I wish you the very best of luck. And from the bottom of my heart, my wish for you is that you experience the most wonderful and satisfying life. Until next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Lessons Lived podcast. The Lessons Lived podcast is part of the Lessons Lived project, where our mission is to catalog the lessons of every human being's unique life and disseminate those lessons for humanity's betterment. If you like what you heard, please subscribe. If you have lessons you would share with the world, you can share them now at lessonslived.com, a platform where you can share your life's lessons and learn from others. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, please send me an email at info@lessonslived.com and let me know what you would teach the world. Until next time, I wish you well.